What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get
in services, everything is clear. There are keys for them, and in specialized, keys for those filters that stand on specific models. Purely theoretically, you can buy your own key, but if the desire to change the oil yourself appears less often than the desire to go on a diet, this expense will not pay for itself. Therefore, we will learn to unscrew the filter with improvised means. The first thing that comes to mind is, of course, a hand. But this trick works very rarely. It is difficult to unscrew the filter with one left hand. And then the ingenuity begins to work. The simplest method has been around since the advent of disposable filters. And it's not for aesthetes. Although, probably, an evil aesthete will do anything. So, the method is as follows. We take a long powerful screwdriver and pierce the filter through. Then everything is clear. We pull the filter out of place, using the handle of the screwdriver as a lever. It is barbaric, of course, but the result is good. Two factors are important for successful performance of the trick. Oil should not be hot. It will almost certainly flow through the screwdriver onto your hand, and it is necessary to pierce through. If you pierce the filter only in one side, its thin tin case may tear, which will make the task much more difficult. If your sense of beauty rebels against this method, you can use another method, which we will call the belt method. It consists in the following. If you make a loop from a good leather belt and tighten it counterclockwise, then, pulling the free end of the belt, the filter can also be moved from the dead point. However, if the filter is stained with oil, the belt will pull on it. So it is better to wipe off the oil, and for safety put a sheet of sandpaper between the belt and the filter housing. Many people will say, why on earth would I keep a leather belt in my garage? I agree, it doesn't belong there. Therefore, instead of it, you can take any belt, for example, the timing belt or the drive of attachments. Of course, the old belt, because the new one can be harmed by oil, in which it is sure to get dirty. And the old belt can also be thrown on a loop and check the whole operation. As a last resort, any rope will do. With it will be a little more difficult. It will slip for sure, so you cannot do without sandpaper. Let's assume that the filter is unscrewed. What else can go wrong? And you can, for example, be very surprised that the drain nut in the pallet is not with the usual head, but with an internal 6 or 4-sided. What to do if life did not prepare for such a turn? The situation with hexagon is theoretically simpler. It is enough to pick up a bolt with a head that fits the size of the hexagon, screw nuts on it and insert its head into the hexagon. Now it remains to take an ordinary wrench and unscrew both bolts by the nuts. If someone is going to change the oil according to the feng shui, i.e., using a new drain bolt, there are plenty of options, from cutting a slot in the head with a hacksaw for a regular screwdriver to hammering a Torx or 12 beam bit into the hexagonal head pretty hard. Both do a pretty good job of slicing themselves into the edges, which they then hold onto nicely. True, the pallet can be very much against this method, especially plastic. As long as you hammer the bit or Torx, it will crack 5 times. With a square bolt the situation is more complicated. Bolt will not help here, so either make a saw cut or unscrew with a gas wrench. Or buy a square bolt, but we don't take the easy way out today. And if we are talking about unscrewing something without the right wrench, just in case, we will remind you of a simple trick for unscrewing a nut with a horn wrench of a larger size than necessary. Between the jaw of the wrench and the nut, or bolt head, you can insert a coin or several coins of suitable thickness. In this way you can, for example, unscrew the battery terminal with a 15mm wrench, although you need a 14 or 13mm wrench. By the way, if the threaded joint is hard and WD-40 does not help, you can tap it with an impact drill or perforator. And if the nut is not sorry, it can be cut off with an impact screwdriver in the drill. This is the hammer and chisel method for techno geeks who have power tools at hand and have no desire to pound on a chisel with a hammer. Now let's get back to our maintenance. There are no other complicated operations when changing oil. Everyone can make a funnel from an empty bottle, but if you want to suffer a little, you can pour oil exactly into the neck without a funnel on the dipstick. To do this, you will have to pour it on the dipstick with a thin stream. The method is long, and it is more suitable for refilling when there is not enough 200 to 300 grams. Of course, pouring 4 liters is too long and tedious. But the engine remains clean. The next operation, which especially advanced motorists sometimes go to carry out themselves, is the replacement of drive belts and timing belt. And many know that the same belt is sometimes difficult to tension with one pair of hands, especially if it is long and passes over many rollers or pulleys. This is where ordinary plastic wire ties can help. Such a tie is sometimes convenient to fix the belt on one of the pulleys, if it has holes through which you can pass the tie, and then the belt will not fly off. The main thing is not to forget to cut off the tie afterwards. Another trick of garage craftsmen is to replace the timing belt without finding and setting the phase marks. To do this, the old belt is first cut in half lengthwise, then remove one half. On the release part of the pulleys and rollers, put on a new belt, then cut the second half of the old belt and move the new belt all the way to its place. Purely theoretically this method works, but I would highly recommend to check the marks, the consequences of failure to replace the belt in this way can be sad, up to the meeting of valves with pistons. One last point about disassembly of the car. Cards often help in this process. Not playing cards, but bank or discount cards. It is convenient to use them instead of a screwdriver or a knife when disassembling plastic parts of the interior, which would be very sorry to scratch. It is difficult to spoil plastic with an old bank card, so you can pick the interior with it safely. And if its edge turns out to be too thick, you don't have to take a knife instead. You can sharpen the card. And it is not necessary to rub it with a bar or a file. It can be sharpened perfectly with an ordinary knife sharpener. Some precision tools, electrics, and diagnostics. Many people often worry about not having a torque wrench on hand. But sometimes it is really useful, especially if you cannot estimate your own strength, and over-tightening bolts is worse than under-tightening them. As an example, I can give the bolts of the valve cover. Usually there is a small tightening torque, about 10 to 15 Newton meters. And if you tighten the bolts more tightly, it is easy to crush or skew the cover gasket. It will sweat, oil will chase through the gasket to the block. So how to find the right torque? And this is where an ordinary spring scale, which is sometimes called a Besman, will help. And then everything is clear. 1 Newton meter is 100 grams on a lever with a length of 1 meter. That is, if we need a tightening torque of 10 Newton meters, we put an extension tube on the wrench, measure a meter from the bolt and find the point at which we need to apply a force equal to 1 kilogram. The main thing is to pull the Besman at right angles. The method is quite accurate, and the resulting error is not too great and will not cause harm. And certainly will not cause as much trouble as a tightened bolt, crushed gasket, or broken thread of the valve cover bolt. However, you can tighten anything this way. Even spark plugs. Tightening torque of 14 mm plugs usually ranges between 25 to 30 Newton meters, i.e., you will have to pull a meter pipe until the Besmans show 2.5 to 3 kilograms. Now I would like to say a few words about how improvised materials can help you when repairing electrics. Probably, there is no sense to tell about a tester with a light bulb. Sometimes it is shameful to approach a modern car with a multimeter. So a light bulb is quite a past century. So I'll tell you about the eternal, about blue tape. As you know, with its help you can repair everything that could not be done with a wire. But sometimes it is needed just to insulate a wire, usually a twist, and that's when it runs out. What to do? A cork from a plastic bottle will help. If you melt it a little with an ordinary lighter and smear the melted plastic on the place of the twist, you will get a good insulation. Not for ages, of course. It is better to use heat shrink tubing or at least the same duct tape, but as a temporary measure, very good. In principle, any plastic will do, but for some reason the lid from a 1.5 cup is the fastest. It's all a matter of crooked hands. I must say that garage homemade fixtures are an art form that is limited by finances and radius of arm curvature. What people don't make. Even pneumatic jacks from plastic surpipes. And all sorts of pullers, presses from jacks and other mini trestles and backhammers from shock absorbers and not to speak of. But all this requires at least a welding machine and is unlikely to be useful to the average motorist. Another thing is to cut a plastic bottle and glue a magnet to its bottom. And the parts of the fastener will not be lost, and from the hood of the car such a device will not fly off by itself. It's just genius, as one automaker tells us, apparently drawing some parallels. This kind of creativity is especially valuable. It is available to everyone and greatly simplifies life in small self-repair. And our people have enough imagination for such inventions. Although this is not the limit either. We have even figured out how to replace a tire without a jack, and right on the road. It is enough to inflate a whole wheel as quickly as possible, put bricks under the lever, deflate the wheel, remove it and put an uninflated spare tire. Then inflate it and pull the bricks out. And that's brilliant, too. Surely many of you have secrets like that. Care to share? In conclusion, having the right tools can make all the difference when it comes to car repair. A sturdy card can help you access tight spaces, while money is essential for purchasing necessary parts and supplies. The two belts are invaluable for securing components and ensuring everything stays in place during your repairs. By understanding how to effectively use these tools, you can tackle a variety of automotive challenges with confidence. Remember, preparation and knowledge are key to successful car maintenance. Thank you for watching, and happy repairing.